The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Hello, welcome back to the American Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Demister. This is my co-host,
Riley Murphy.
And today we're going to be talking about Garrett Foster. For those of you who are not familiar with Garrett Foster, 2 days ago in Austin, there was a BLM protest, and he got shot. We're going to get into detail about that, but we'll just kind of do like a little, I don't even know,
Little
sum up of it. Essentially, he was pushing his girlfriend in a wheelchair across the intersection, and an unknown car entered into a pedestrian-only area. At least that's what I've seen from looking into it. I don't know if it was a pedestrian-only area because you can go and we'll try to pull up one of the videos later in the podcast. But
yeah, couldn't really quite tell.
Yeah, there was only 2 point of views, and that's it. So you only have 2 perspectives to see. Essentially, what happened was the car pulled into the pedestrian-only area. He was there specifically to, in quote, protect the protesters, and he confronted the car. And a lot of people said that he shot first, that he pointed a firearm at them. In one of the videos, you can actually see that he never actually turned the safety off on his firearm, put his finger on the trigger, or pointed it at the vehicle, and he was still shot 4 times.
Very quickly.
Very quickly.
It was like an immediate reaction.
It was like guy with gun, we're shooting. It was. So from what the police are saying, the driver is cooperating, who was the gunman. At least that's what everyone's saying at the moment.
Right.
And that he thought Garrett was a threat.
I did hear on one source, I don't know where this was, but they were talking about the passenger being the gunman. I don't think that's the case.
No, I don't think so either.
It was the driver.
Yeah, it was the driver. So the driver was the gunman, and that there was actually 3 people who were involved. There was the gunman, the driver, Garrett, and then there was one of Garrett's buddies who actually I think shot 2 or 3 times. They couldn't really tell.
I don't know. This was in Austin, Texas. Where's this kid from? Where was he from? Where's Garrett from?
I wasn't sure. I couldn't figure that out. I did figure out though that some more details about why he was there and who he was. So he was painted, at least from a couple YouTube accounts that I've seen, as a super left wing like hates cops, Antifa member who was there to cause trouble. When he was actually the opposite. He was a libertarian like us,
Yep.
who was fed up with, in his eyes, police brutality against.
He had literally said specifically, he said they don't let us march around anymore. He said, so they don't let us march around anymore. I'm here to I'm here to present my rights. I'm here to practice my rights. Sorry.
Yeah. And he essentially, somebody asked him, would you use your rifle against a police officer? And he said, well, it's a lose situation if I do. And some people took that out of context. I don't really know what the context was. There really was no context in the video because it was just like, he just said it. Like, it wasn't like he was like, oh, I want to go out and create harm, or I want to go out and create, like incite and violence. He was just like, I can't use it against police officers. And
he said, I can't use it against cops. I'll die.
Exactly, which you will. Let's just put it that way. You will in any situation like that. You're gonna get hurt. It's not the thing to do. And in this situation, he was painted as portrayed as being violent. He immediately, as soon as that happened, it was like Antifa member points gun at Austin resident, gets shot, like something like that. And the whole Facebook blew up immediately. It was like, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, like all those memes you see, and people immediately just wanted to lay it into Garrett without knowing any details. Even the own libertarian community, like they laid into Garrett.
And they're already talking about like if the sides were flipped.
Yeah.
Like how aggressive that would be as well.
That would be like if Garrett was a part of Antifa or was one of their protesters, how much of the violence is there right now.
And I mean, no matter what he supports or whatever his agenda is or whatever, at the end of the day, he's practicing his rights, and we're here for that.
Exactly. Like no matter if it's your first, second, third, all the way up to any of your rights. I mean, rights are absolute and individual. They shouldn't be portrayed as like only a certain group has certain rights, or people can only do this at certain times. Like you should have if you have a Second Amendment, you should be able to.
I think we need people out there doing exactly what he did or was doing in some form or another.
Exactly.
Because it's getting to the point where it's pushing too far over that line where someone walking around with a gun is a big deal now.
It's a huge deal now.
And we want to dumb that down a bit because it's like.
I mean, it goes back to like our of this podcast season, in quote, like our first podcast, we said, the X amount of people, Americans, that were buying guns. It was an absurd amount of new gun owners. And now I think that firearms, the debate for like firearms, it's over. At this point now, we have to talk about the new individuals who have firearms who are doing things like this and getting hurt. Now, I don't know if Garrett was new to firearms, I couldn't find that out, or anything on the driver, obviously, because this happened 2 days ago.
Right.
You could, for a little while, access to social media, but I think at that point now they're all like private.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think you can anymore. And there was nothing released on the driver, so we haven't really figured that out yet.
Yeah, I'm curious what their perspective is on it, what they have to say.
Yeah, and that also goes to like the point of when you are in those situations, medical gear is like your best friend. If you
Right.
have a firearm, you should have medical gear. Because if something happens like that, where there's just a really bad situation, wrong place, wrong time, someone not meaning to go out and hurt somebody, another person just trying to say, hey, like
You're
you're
always
coming in.
prepared.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. My bag. I have this bag, and it's
Yeah.
got tourniquets in
Yeah,
it. God,
yeah.
quick caught. Like if something happens, because I carry a firearm, if I use it and I accidentally, say discharge it myself or someone I don't want to, there's always over penetration. You're never gonna hit your target when you really want to, if you need to. And on top of that, if you're having a firearm, you're planning on getting hurt. Like in that context, what I mean
Doing
by
some sort of damage.
well, not only that,
Yeah.
you're planning on being attacked. Like if you're carrying a firearm,
Right.
your point is, okay, this is in case I get attacked. Now, if you don't have the time to pull out your firearm, but some reason you're still alive, you have the means and the medical equipment to at least
Right.
slow down the bleeding, slow down the process of you dying.
I mean, it's definitely a smart decision for any gun owner.
And not even just any gun owner. Like if you're driving a car and you're planning on getting in an
right.
accident, like figure out how to apply a tourniquet, like get first aid certified, CPR certified, and all that fun stuff. And I'm not saying that in that situation where Garrett was, that could have saved his life, but that definitely could have helped.
Right. I totally agree.
He did get aid relatively quickly. There was a police officer.
Right. I mean, it
at
was
that
it
intersection.
was a large amount of people in the area. I mean, I'm sure they had, EMTs right around the corner.
Well, they knew the protest was going on. The
Right,
potential
exactly.
for that to get violent, or not only violent, the potential like the NFC, whatever, the militia that accidentally discharged himself in Kentucky as well.
Yep. I was just gonna say, where was that?
Yeah.
Kentucky.
You saw everyone in that crowd. You could just tell they didn't know what to do in that situation. They stood around, they looked around. Some of them like
And
hid.
the clip, or at least there's 2 videos, but the main clip, it's like 40 seconds long. It's just completely, it cuts off very quickly at the end. You can't really.
Yeah, you don't really see if any, like, it doesn't look like anyone's trying to apply aid. It looks like they're just trying to call for help. Like, they're
Right.
not like, oh my God, like he's hurt, let's help him. It's, oh my God, he's hurt, let's call for help.
Yeah.
Which seems to be like a big misconception that everyone
And then
has to
everyone
call
else
for
is
help.
like, oh, let me take a video.
Yeah, everyone else like let me just start videoing or lay down on the ground because they thought something was going on. You see those 2 guys that were like crawling, like crab crawling to the left and right.
I mean, hey, if they think their life's an arm and that's their way they're gonna.
I don't know,
take it.
man. I also think that like when you look at pictures of those guys, like they're gonna do like they're not gonna do what they want to do. They're gonna hurt themselves. Perfect example, them hurting themselves. I mean, you saw the firearms that they had. They were like jammed MP-22-15s. They had like magazines that didn't belong to their firearms and their vests. It literally looked like somebody came with a big collection of guns and started handing it out to individuals, and they already had themselves accessorized. Like they went and just bought a
Might
bunch
be
of
onto
random
something.
shit. Well, that's what I thought. I was like, okay, they're either some people are handing out other people their firearms, or there's someone supplying them, or they just don't know what the hell they're doing at all.
Yeah, I don't know what to say on that.
It could be a mix, there's like a different, if you look at it, they are extremely unprepared. They don't know what they're doing down to the littlest of like fundamentals.
Yeah, I think they were pushing. I mean, I can't verify, but it feels like they were pushing their boundaries a little bit.
They were.
And I mean, that's not proven or anything though. But
yeah, well, when you put a bunch of untrained people together with loaded firearms, you're bound to get someone hurt.
There was some things he said ahead of the protest, right? That was like caught on video at some point.
With Garrett?
Yeah, he.
Oh, yeah. So Garrett,
he
was. It was like 2 interviews, I think, of him.
Yeah.
And one of them was with him and his fiance, and then just him.
But I don't know what he said exactly, but it kind of made him look a little bad.
Yeah.
After the scenario, but.
Yeah, I think he said something like, "We're not here to get pushed around," or along those lines. I saw the quote on Facebook.
Yeah.
He spoke with Hiram Gilberto Garcia, an independent journalist, before the incident obviously happened, and he said he started to bring the weapon after his roommate was arrested for protesting. And then he also brought up the comment you said earlier with regards to, if I shoot at the police, I'm dead.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that he explained his motivation for why he has the gun and why he wouldn't use it inappropriately in that interview. And unfortunately, things happened and he lost his life
Yeah.
shortly thereafter.
He did. And that actually, I mean, it is partially his fault. Like, somebody who's a gun owner who carries every single day and is prepared for something like this, if somebody comes up to my window, granted, like in here in New Hampshire, we're not really having any of the big protests
Right.
going around. If somebody comes up to my window with a firearm, I am not going to immediately shoot them, but I'm going to get ready to defend myself. Like, I'm going to expect, okay, why is this guy at my window? What are his intentions? And where is my advantage and disadvantage
But
here?
also with carrying a gun, you have to know what to expect.
Exactly.
Like that is expected
Mhm.
when you run into those scenarios, and especially given the location he was at.
Yeah. Well, you're at a protest
Yeah.
with what you know. A lot of these BLM protests have been supported by the Libertarian Party. And the Libertarian Party, we love to arm ourselves. We love it. I mean, we can't get enough. So when we go to protests, we bring that. We show everyone that, hey, this is the Second Amendment. This is the libertarian way, you know, like absolute freedoms. It doesn't matter in your sexual orientation, your race, your age, as long as you're responsible with the firearms. Go and protect yourself, especially at these protests, because a lot of the times there are you're protesting
right.
police brutality, and you know there are a lot of police officers there. So if you're expecting to beat up, a lot of people are saying just the presence alone is to make the police officers think twice. I have mixed opinions on that. Like, yes and no. They're gonna do what they're gonna do anyway. They're gonna do what they
Right.
need to do anyway. They're gonna uphold the law, and if they want to arrest you for something that they deem a reason to arrest you, I mean, there's no stopping them. It's like telling somebody not to go drink and drive. They're
I'm
still
just
gonna
a
do it.
huge fan of citizens being armed.
Well, that's I
Like,
mean, dude, that's what it was. The Second
if
Amendment was written for.
exactly. If you know everyone was armed, police were armed, citizens were armed. You know, it's a fair game in a way.
It is like it's like you're in an environment where there's predators and prey.
Yeah.
When you give the prey a weapon, they're no longer
Exactly.
prey. It's now become an equal environment, and at that point, it's anyone's game. It's all fair. It's
Right.
fair on all levels, government and citizen levels, and I just don't. A lot of people don't want the citizens to have that same advantage of the government, but they have to understand it's called we
I
the
think it's
people.
necessary.
It's literally it's
necessary.
we the people.
Right.
It's not we the people bow down to the government.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
we the people. Like, it's not the people should listen to the government. Or the people we are the government. We make up the government. We make our rules. We decide what we want to do as a whole. We decide everything. But it seems to be that now, like after 2001, when the Patriot Act went in, and I
Right.
say Patriot
I
Act
think we
because
brought that up every
Yeah,
podcast.
almost every podcast. I think that pisses us off the most because it's called the Patriot Act, but there's literally nothing patriotic involved in it besides that they're ensuring, I guess, that you're not against their values. And I only say that because like they're watching people who vote extreme left. They're watching people who vote extreme right. They're watching people who don't completely agree with whatever system is in place at that moment. And that's what it's really used against. Like, I mean, didn't Obama use the Department of Homeland Security to spy on Trump? Wasn't that what it was, Ben?
Supposedly, I mean, that's one of the charges that's been lobbied out there, but I don't know how much evidence there's been to back that up, but that has certainly been a talking point over the last few years.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure on that because I've tried to look into it but couldn't find too much. Some people said it was the Secret Service, some people said it was the Department of Security, some people said it was the NSA, like, and then some people said it was all the above.
Yeah.
But
regardless how you break it down, they're all government agencies.
exactly, they're all government agencies working directly under whoever that head of the administration was at that point in time. Did you hear about the people in Minneapolis as well? So they got their firearms taken away. And then the local armorer of their police department took the handgun. So the only working firearm out of the two firearms that you see the couple of Minneapolis using, the handgun was inoperable. It wasn't considered working. And what did the police do? Decided to go in and modify it so it would work. So when they can present it in front of a judge, they can say this is a working firearm. And because of that,
it sounds highly illegal.
Super illegal. It's tampering with evidence. That is tampering with evidence, and just because the cops have the evidence, they can.
That's wild.
Yeah, and I don't. It wasn't ordered by the district attorney. I think it was just to get the charges to stick.
Yeah, who was the one that made the decision?
I don't think there wasn't enough details on it. They just said that the local police armorer modified the firearm and that the case is going to be thrown out because of such. least that's what I saw.
What are the gun laws out there like?
I haven't looked into that. I'm pretty sure you have to have a carry
not sure.
permit. I'm almost 99% sure. It's very, it's they're, and I'd say like standardized firearm laws. You need to go get a background check. You need to pass, your firearms qualification, I think, out there to get your handgun or your carry permit. And then on top of that, you just go buy what you want. What you would out here, but you need to get a safety course and a carry permit, I believe. Out here, you don't need any of those things.
Nothing.
Nope, you need absolutely nothing. You need a clean criminal record is what you need.
What state were you just talking about?
It was in Minneapolis, so that's
Minnesota. I'm just looking it up right now from usconcealedcarry.com. There is no permit, background check, or firearm registration required when buying a handgun from a private individual. Open carry is legal with a Minnesota permit to carry or permit license from a state that Minnesota honors. There is no stipulation in the law regarding whether that weapon must be concealed.
And if a lot of people have any questions, like if you have a carry permit in New Hampshire and you're wondering if you can go to like Florida, for instance, with that and it being honored, USCCA has an app that's really good. I use that a lot. Like I don't have a permit because what are permits? In New Hampshire, you don't need one, so why get one?
New Hampshire.
Yeah, I actually thought about doing it the other day, but I was like, oh, the $50 to the crown just doesn't suit me well, so I'm not going to do that. And you can go, I think, 11 or 12 different states, Florida included, Arizona, New Mexico. I know California doesn't honor it. New York doesn't honor it. Vermont doesn't honor it. But
California doesn't.
Yeah, you don't. Of course, California, I only think honors like 2 or 3 different states. I don't think they even honor New York's.
I don't know.
You can check it on the app too, because I have the app. It's a great app too. If you're wondering any gun laws, or like I was going into Vermont a couple months ago to pick up a dirt bike with one of my friends, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna bring my handgun, and so
you need to know if you can.
Yeah, and I was like, let's see if I can do it. You could. However, there were magazine restrictions. So you couldn't bring a handgun magazine that had more than 15 or a rifle magazine that had more than 10. And you couldn't import those at all. So meaning you couldn't bring them in from outside the state. However, if you lived in the state, they were grandfathered in.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Per usual.
And I think they actually changed the import law. It was on Vermont's website as well, where you could actually bring in magazines as long as they're made. Like like Massachusetts, you can buy a Prudan AR out of state, bring it in state. As long as it's pre-man.
Right.
But same thing with mags down there. You really can't tell when they're made.
I mean, Massachusetts is rough down there with that.
They're really rough down there with that. I mean, think about if that happened in Massachusetts. If what happened in Minnesota happened in Massachusetts, how bad that would
It'd be a whole different ballgame.
Well, they would have been arrested off the spot because down in Massachusetts, you have to flee. Even if there's 40 people in your yard and you think they're going to break into your house, you have to go hide. Like, because that's a great thing to do is put yourself in a box, a surrounded box. It's a great thing to do. That's what they want you to do. They don't want you to fight. They don't want you to fight back. They don't want you to resist at all. They want you to just kind of lay down and take it straight up.
Some people are.
Yeah, a lot of people are, and I don't understand it. Like you go out and you see a lot of people saying, well, if somebody, I see on Facebook all the time from like some of my friends on the left, and they're like, is your property more valuable than somebody's life? And I asked, is my property more valuable than your life?
Yeah.
Because that's how you look at it. And I don't know exactly why it's like that. I don't know exactly where the mentality changed. It's always been around, but it's grown. And it's grown in a huge amount of numbers. But now with the firearms owners coming back, the rise of firearms
it's
soaring.
I call it the rise of firearms.
The rise of firearms again. It's the roaring 20s. It's this great ammo shortage, like firearm shortage. You can't go out and just we can't walk into a gun store right now and find what you want.
No.
And I genuinely mean that.
And
like once a week.
Very limited.
Yeah, it's on Monday.
Yeah.
it's today. So after we leave this, we're heading back up. Yeah, we're gonna stop from every gun store to Auburn up 28. From here to Auburn, honestly, because that's the only day they call the distributors, they get the stuff, and it's all in a shortage.
You're on top of it.
On top of it. But back to what we were saying about like Glenn Foster's next week. I think what we're gonna try to do is we're gonna try to have somebody on who knows a little bit more about that stuff and has been in those scenarios.
Right.
I'm not going to say his name because we're not 100% sure yet.
I also want to go back, jump into next week. I want to jump into back to Jillian Maxwell.
Yeah.
Kind of an update on that situation.
Yeah, I botched her name. We were talking about that. I did like the Google Translate thing because, language-based learning disabilities. And
we were running with it. I didn't notice.
It was like Glasstein, or whatever the hell I was calling her.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but I think that's actually her real name. But all right, but anyway, we'll see you guys next week. Hopefully, we'll be talking about self-defense and what to do in the scenario like Garrett Foster kind of got himself into on both sides. If you're Garrett or if you're the driver.
Yep. Either way.
Have a good week. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.